When our best fur friends leave our world, many of us are left wanting one last scritch, one last hug, one last walk together. One Last Network is a space for pet guardians to honor their pets in their senior years and to cope with the days leading up to and after their passing. Here's your host, Angela Schneider, founder of One Last Network and Big White Dog Photography in Spokane, Washington.
With every opening of the podcast, you've been listening to the dulcet tones of James Fell. James is my friend from my way back days in Calgary, Alberta. Otherwise known as the sweary historian who writes history books replete with F-bombs and mother truckers, he is a dog lover who can't have a dog due to his wife's allergies. I somehow just knew, even though I hadn't been in the same room as James for 10 years by the time I launched this podcast in 2022, that he had the right voice to introduce a show about pets and maybe even grief. And as much as I love the intro, it's time for a change. Compassion fatigue is a very real phenomenon for people who work in the grief industry. Compassion fatigue is a state of emotional and physical exhaustion that affects those who care for others. It can lead to a gradual decline in their ability to empathize or feel compassion. Its symptoms may include feelings of apathy, irritability, difficulty concentrating, insomnia, and a sense of detachment from others. Well, that makes it sound like I've had compassion fatigue since I was 14. But it can lead to burnout and have an impact on personal well-being and professional performance. Combine all that with the fact I've been trying to move forward with my grief over losing my mom in 2022, and things can get really tough sometimes. I thought I could draw upon my experience as a newspaper journalist, the ability to shut my feelings off to get the job done, to consistently manage discussions around grief and pet loss grief, and be just fine. But I'm human, and I'm not just fine. I've been feeling a lot lately like I'm not moving through my grief well enough. A compounding of my mother's death with latent or unresolved grief for Shep in 2014 and my dad in 1996. And now I get to add the death of my husband's mother, supporting my two-legged beloved through this period of losing his mom. It can all get a tad overwhelming, mustering the energy to offer support or care, finding the energy to give myself support and care, and then turning to a podcast to talk about loss, grief, and more loss and grief. It's brought me to a point where I just don't want to do it anymore. The podcast, I mean. Supporting my husband and myself are not exactly negotiable. But the kind words of support for this podcast have not gone unnoticed. People have told me or dropped me messages that the podcast has helped them move through their grief. That matters to me. I've long believed that I don't have to change the entire world, but if I can change the world for one person at a time, it makes a difference in creating a more compassionate, kinder world. Listening to these episodes gives us a safe and supportive space to process our grief. Hearing other human stories or advice can provide comfort and validation for a type of grief that isn't always acknowledged in greater society. These episodes have maybe helped us all feel a little less isolated and alone on our grief journey. Certainly, interviewing my experts has served as a valuable tool for self-reflection for me, expanding my knowledge of grief and the process toward healing. I've gained insights into my own grief and found ways to honor the memory of Shep and my parents, and how to prepare and plan for the inevitable with Bella, which I hope doesn't come anytime soon. But others have told me I have to listen to your podcast strategically because the content is so heavy, or I can't bring myself to listen. I just don't think I can get there yet. I get it. All you have to do, if you're a regular listener, is to remember the episodes where I have full-on sobbed into the microphone. I get it. So I don't want to stop entirely, which means the podcast will go on, just with a different sound. We'll be diversifying the content beyond senior care and grief topics, offering a wider range of pet-related issues. While grief is an important aspect of pet guardianship, there are so many other subjects we can address and offer guidance and support on. Therapy animals, service dogs, training, nutrition, supplements, and so on. It will help me, I hope, move forward in my grief better, as I can take breaks from talking about grief for lengths of time, rather than being immersed in it every day, constantly thinking about the next guest and episode. And then I can start bringing you the best of me again. And I can start giving my photography clients the best of me again, too. Pet photography will be central to the subject matter, since it's a subject about which I am so passionate. I believe that our dogs, any pet, can be our greatest teachers if we let them. Shep showed me that being myself was A-OK, to shed the opinions of others and to trust the journey. Bella reminds me to be fierce, independent, and stubborn about what's important to me. They both have made me a more patient, more compassionate human. And I strive to honor all they have taught me by creating a legacy of their lives with my cameras and artwork. I strive to honor all your dog teaches you by creating a legacy of her life, your relationship, your love together with my cameras and my artwork. And as I've said many times on this podcast, I believe that artwork, the images I create, can serve as a source of comfort and solace when our companion animals leave us. The artwork serves as a reminder of the bond we shared and help us to navigate the difficult, overwhelming emotions that come with loss. Holding a photo album in your hands can remind you to be grateful for the time you spent together and reassure you that you gave your dog her best life, rather than dwelling on the pain of her loss and her absence. What's funny is my big white dog photography business in Spokane, Washington is focused on the lust for life I can only find in adventuring with my dog, and the empowerment women feel because of and through their dogs. It's always felt a little incongruent with my other project about pet loss grief. And so I'll be bringing you stories about professional pet photographers who have undertaken personal projects that are changing the world, projects that have deep personal meaning to my photographer friends. We'll be advocating for pets in ways that support guardians of reactive dogs or finding ways to ease our pets' anxiety. And we'll be exploring more deeply this incredible, profound connection between human and pet. We won't be leaving the grief world behind entirely. End-of-life care and pet bereavement support are still going to be important topics to continue exploring. After all, I have two of the top experts in my pocket, Colleen Ellis and Beth Bigler. In fact, I still have one interview with each of them coming up for you. So, by expanding the content to encompass broader themes, I hope to create a more inclusive and comprehensive resource for pet guardians. And as I embark on this journey of reshaping the podcast, I do so with a heart brimming with gratitude for the support and understanding from each and every listener. Please feel free to let me know if you would like to share the story of your journey with your pet, or if you know of someone who is doing incredible work in the pet realm. I'll soon be rebranding the website, which will continue to be a resource to find high-quality end-of-life pet photographers, and I'll have a Be Our Guest form to fill out. Or you can drop me a line or two at angela@bigwhitedogphotography.com or slide on into my DMs on the gram at the Companions Collective. I'll see you back here soon. I'm Angela Schneider, owner of Big White Dog Photography in Spokane, Washington, and your host at One Last Network, signing off to go get some Bella snuggles. Listen to One Last Network on whichever podcast platform you prefer. We're on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you have a friend who might be interested in our content, make sure you share us with them. Thanks for listening.